Hello, children. Welcome back. This is Miss RR again, and I'm gonna tell you a story. Are you ready? Yes. Story time with Miss RR. Was it's just another game of hide and seek? No, it was not. First, she fell into a deep, dark hole in the ground, and then they found the treasure. Did it end there? No, it did not. Watch more about this thrilling adventure of Sally and friends in this free illustrated kids book online. The fun never ends when Sally's around. Hide and seek. James, his sister Sally, and Mark, their BFF, best friend forever, were bored. They had played all day. But now that it was dark and difficult to see, they had nothing to do. They couldn't play soccer because they couldn't see the ball. They didn't want to go inside and play again because it was a beautiful springtime night and they liked being outside, especially after having to play inside all winter long. They just didn't know what to do, and it was a little too early for them to go home. I guess I'll just go home, Mark said in a sad voice. Oh, come on, replied James. We still have time for that. And I was just going to say that, James said. Yeah, I'll be, replied his sister. You always say you were thinking of whatever I ate in a loud voice. Do too, yelled Sally. Mark just looked down at the ground and shook his head from side to side. They are at it again, he mumbled to himself. Then he yelled, Okay, let's play hide and seek. I'll be the seeker. He turned, faced a big tree, closed his eyes, and started counting out loud 100, 99, 98, 97. Sally and Mark stopped arguing, looked at each other, and ran off in different directions to find a think, hiding think of. She snapped, Donut James Place. In the distance, they could still hear Mark counting 4, 3, 2, 1. Ready or not? Here. Finding Sally was easy. She always ran off and then circled back so she would be close to base, the safe place to get to before being tagged. Mark looked for the biggest tree and ran towards it, but she wasn't there. I'll bet she's behind that big bush, he said to himself. So he ran to it and was ready to tag her, but she wasn't there either. As she turned around, he saw James running towards base and darted after him. Just before he touched James and he touched James' shoulder, James tagged the base and yelled out, Safe! Did you get Sally yet? James asked. No, said Mark. I haven't been able to find her, and it's getting late, and we need to be heading home. So both boys yelled out, Come on, Sally, come out, Sally. It's late. But there was no reply, not even a little snicker from somewhere in the darkness. They yelled again, Come on out, Sally, it's late. Still, there was no reply from Sally. They began to worry and started searching for her. As, as they walked around the area, they called out, Sally, Come on, we give up. And you're so, but no matter where they looked or how what much they called out, Sally was wondering she had happened. What had happened? She all she could remember was crawling under the big trunk of a fallen tree to hide. Now, as she looked up, she saw several stars through a small hole above her head. She had fallen into a hole when she crawled under the tree trunk. Help! She yelled and heard her voice echo throughout what must have been a cave. Help! 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 Did you hear that, James? Mark said excitedly. Sally just yelled for help. Keep yelling, Sally, James screamed. That way we can find you, Sally heard her brother and kept screaming. After a short while, the boys were standing next to the big tree trunk. Hey, are you stuck under this tree? Asked James. Kind of, Sally yelled. When I crawled under it to hide, I fell into a cave. Please help me. I'm scared. It's dark and I can't get out. Mark said, James, you stay with Sally and I will go get me dad. Then she dashed off. Then he dashed off into darkness. Don't be scared, James said. I am right here with you. No, you're not, Sally sobbed. You are up there and I'm down here. As Sally turned into darkness of the cave, she bumped into something and screamed and began to cry. What's wrong? James yelled. There's something down here with me. Sally replied in a shaky voice. Just then, Mark and his dad came running through the woods. Mark's father knelt down and asked Sally if she was okay. He could hear her crying and sobbing. Sally, are you hurt? He asked. No, she said, but I'm scared and there is something down here with me. Stand back, Sally. Mark's dad tied the rope to the tree, found the hole under the tree trunk, wiggled a bit, and lowered himself into the cave. Sally could see him coming down the rope and stopped crying. Not only was he there, but the cave became brighter from the beam of his flashlight as it danced across the cave's floor and walls. As he reached the floor of the cave, he shone the light on Sally and gave a big hug. Don't be frightened, he said. I'll have you out of there in no time. Then he shone the light around and saw that she had fallen into a small cave and very close to her. In the middle of the cave was something wrapped in layers of old blankets. Mark, James, there's something down here. I'm going to it to the group, and I want you to pull it out. Okay, they replied. The boys pulled out the object, untied it, and let the loose end of the rope fall back into the cave. The cave wasn't deep, and Mark's dad posted Sally over his head so she could crawl out. He then grabbed the rope and, with a little jump, was able to grab the opening and pull himself out. Let's go back to my house for a cup of hot tea. I'll call your parents so they aren't worried and we'll see what treasure shell found Sally found, he said. When they got to Mark's house, they sipped their area and began unwrapping the treasure. They carefully peeled off layers of old blankets and cloth to reveal a wooden box. They slowly opened it and stared in amazement. Oh my, Sally said. disbelief. I don't believe what I am saying. The boys and girl and Mark's father just stared inside the box were jewels of every color you could imagine. There were diamonds, rubies, sapphires, and emeralds of all shapes and sizes. Intermixed, they could see several gold coins and strands of pearls. Where rich, the boy screamed, not quite interrupted. Mark's father, someone could have lost this, and I don't think you should plan on spending any of it until we find out a little more besides Sally. Found it. I'll share it, Sally said. That's nice. The next day, the four of them and Sally's mother drove to the police station, explained what had happened, and gave the treasure to the police to hold while they conducted their investigation. They left the police station sadly, and even the double dipped ice cream cones Mark's father bought for them didn't make them smile. They drove back in silence. Several week, Several weeks passed with no word from the police. Then one evening, Mark's father called James, Sally, and their parents. The police just called, and I think you should come over right now, he said. I'm afraid there is one bad news about the treasure. The police are on their way and will explain everything when you get there here. When they arrived at Mark's house, the police were there with the treasure box. As Sally entered, the captain introduced himself and said, Sally, this is yours. Your parents need to sign some papers, but the box and its contents are yours. Sally, Mark, and James shrieked with joy and danced around the room. Then Sally said, What is the bad news? The captain smiled and said, The treasure is worth more money than you can imagine, and with your newfound wealth comes great responsibility. Sally didn't quite understand what the captain was talking about, and right now it really didn't matter. Mark asked, Are you going to the shop? Of course, Sally. If you and James didn't help me, I might still be I, I might still be there. Several days later, Sally asked everyone over to her house. I have decided what to do with the money from the treasure after it is sold, she said. I am giving one sixth to our mom and dad, one sixth to Mark's mom and dad, and 162 Mark, 162 James, and 16 for me. There is an extra 16 after proudly stated he loved Maine. He loved math. No, there's not, Sally said. It's two. James said, It's not. Sally said, It's an angered voice. Just as Mark is going to say, They are at it again, Sally said. This is why there isn't extra 1/6. I'm giving it to the local charity so it can be given to those less fortunate, and in need. Her mother and father said it was a caring and responsible thing to do. They were very proud of her and knew that she understood they what that matters about. Our next story is about the case of the missing smile. Detective Patterson is trying to find where Sally Sue lost her beautiful smile, and she finds it right in her heart, hidden from sight. What's this imaginative story for of a little girl and how they learned to smile again in this great free children's fairy story? Now, this looks like a very interesting case, Detective Patterson said aloud. as she reviewed the huge stack of reports on her desk. I think I will handle this one myself. After several minutes of searching through the official Tooth Fairy records, she found what she was looking for, a folder with the name Sophia So Simons. Hmm, Detective Patterson mumbled as she studied the file. As Detective Patterson read the report, she noted that Sophia Saw always smiled from the time she got out of bed to the time she went back to bed. She smiled. In fact, Sophia Saw never seemed to stop smiling. Then 2 days ago, Sophia Saw stopped smiling. Why? Detective Patterson wondered. I must find out why and get Sophia Saw's smile back, she said to herself. She searched through the file but couldn't find anything that could have caused Sophia Sue to stop smiling all of a sudden. Was she happy at home? The smile-o-meter indicated yes. Happy at home. Happy at school. Was she happy at school? The smile-o-meter indicated yes. Was she happy with her friends? The smile-o-meter indicated yes. Everything that Detective Patterson found indicated that Sophia saw was happy and that she could be smiling. The detective checked with the dentist and everything was fine. The detective checked with Tooth Fairy Central. All of Sophia's Sue's baby teeth had fallen out, been collected as scheduled, and replaced with new, extremely pretty, permanent teeth. Detective Patterson checked everything. She couldn't find anything that could cause Sophia Sue to stop smiling. There was only one choice left. Detective Patterson had to visit Sophia Sue and see what she could do. That night, Detective Patterson flew down and visited Sophia Sue, making sure that she didn't wake Sophia Sue. She sprinkled magical tooth fairy sand into the air. Sophia Sue, Detective Patterson whispered, "What happened to your beautiful smile? You look so sad." "I lost my baby teeth," she whispered. "Now the tooth fairy doesn't have any reason to visit me." "Oh, I understand," Detective Patterson whispered between smiling lips. "The tooth fairy will always be in your heart, so you can wipe that silly frown off your pretty face." As Detective Patterson flew away from Sophia Sue's bedside, she saw the smile return bigger and brighter than ever before. That's all. Thank you for watching, little children. Bye.